Chapter 13, A Heartbeat Away from Oblivion. As I was flying over the handlebars of my bicycle, the only thought I had was, buddy, when I get up, I'm going to stomp on your throat, rip your head off, and shit down your motherfucking. Luckily for the other rider and his fucking recumbent bike, the old man upstairs had other plans. You see, after hitting the ground hard, I mean really hard, I slipped out of consciousness only to remember pictures before being laid up in ICU Wednesday, July 12th, 2023 at 11:33 a.m. That's right, I was about to wrap up this book and get ready for publishing when the old man upstairs decided I needed to add another chapter. So what happened? I was out on my daily ride, nothing out of the ordinary. At the last mile, another cyclist was on his recumbent bike and I saw him signal to make the right turn. Being the alert cyclist that I am, I adjusted to pass on his left side. Simultaneously, he decided it was a good idea to make a wide right turn, sweeping into the left lane, almost clipping my front tire. Thinking fast, I made a hard right, and at that moment he completed his right turn. I T-boned the recumbent cyclist. I went airborne, clearing my handlebars and his bike as well. Images of the ambulance, emergency room, various medical machinery, and other trauma patients in the emergency room are all jumbled up mess of memories, not to mention my trauma doctor's eyes drew my attention. I'm not lucky when it comes to love, more than likely she's married, but I digress. The following day, the trauma doctor came into my room and explained what had happened. She explained that I had broken 8 ribs, numbers 2 through 9, on the right side of my body. I had an AC shoulder dislocation, a bump on my head. She used some sort of medical term, but I can't remember what it was. I was in the trauma section of the hospital for a couple of days, and for a minute I began to feel sorry for myself. I asked, why me? Why now? These are typical questions when one is sitting on their pity pot. As quickly as the victim mentality came, it left and another thought came in. Wait a minute, why not you? It's not like you haven't experienced this shit before. You've been cycling on and off for 30 plus years since your first UI. It's not like you haven't broken a rib before. And it's certainly not your first time dislocating your shoulder. This isn't your first rodeo. Embrace the suck and make friends with the pain. After breakfast, I asked the nurse if I could be disconnected from all the machines, and I rolled out of bed. This is when I get an opportunity to lie to you, the reader, and say that I sucked up the pain and walked around the nurse's station like a boss. No, not at all. I sucked up the pain and held my breath rolling out of bed because breathing was excruciating. I could only do one rotation around the nurse's station because I was so lightheaded and dizzy from the pain of just walking. But I did it. One lap. Breaking a rib sucks, but the good news is the pain from breaking 8 ribs is no different than from breaking 1 rib. Breaking 1 rib radiates to the other 11. Breaking 8 does the exact same thing and radiates to the other 4. It's fucking painful. A few days later, I was released from ICU. It was Friday, July 14th, 2023. I had strict instructions to schedule a follow-up checkup with the trauma unit to take more pictures of my ribs and lungs. I forgot to mention that my right lung also had a pneumothorax. Allow me to explain what a pneumothorax is in lay terms, because I won't be able to explain it in any other way. Picture the inside of your rib cavity. There's a layer of tissue that acts like double-sided sticky tape. This tissue attaches your lungs to your rib cage and keeps your lungs fixed into position. A pneumothorax is when that sticky tape gets punctured and air seeps in between the layers, causing pressure on the lungs. The follow-up meeting wasn't all that great with the trauma surgeon who was there for the consultation. He wasn't happy with what was going on in my lung cavity. I guess I had an internal bleeding and fluid was building up on the right side of my chest. Now, I'm no doctor, but if I had a portion of my lung collapsing because of an air bubble and the bottom half drowning in fluid, I would think my lung would collapse fully and, well, I'd be in deep shit. My options were to be admitted immediately or we could donkey dick around for a few weeks and see what happened. I chose to be admitted instead of the latter option. Now I realized that I would be going into surgery, and this is where I have to say ignorance is bliss. because while the surgical team seemed to be on edge like this procedure was a big deal, I was cool as a cucumber. No anxiety at all. Again, there is something to be said about being ignorant. After the surgery was over, I had two tubes sticking out of my back, draining all the fluids from my chest cavity. However, the pain that I had embraced a week earlier was back with a vengeance. The nighttime nurse had to play catch up with all the medications to finally get to a point where I could relax, or breathe for that matter. We were talking about all the good shit: fentanyl, morphine, and all the designer drugs. Better living through better pharmaceuticals. Still in the recovery room, as I was writing this chapter, I had to say I was in good spirits. Embracing the suck and enjoying the process is way easier than bitching and complaining about everything. Playing the victim doesn't work. In the past, I've played the victim and felt sorry for myself when injured. But as stated in earlier chapters, people get tired of that angle and eventually resent you, regardless of the fact that you're hurt. While I was in the hospital during a shift change, I overheard one nurse tell another nurse that I was the easiest patient in the ward. I took that as a compliment. A few years earlier, I could have easily been the worst, miserable, and unappreciative. In times like this, you also find out who your friends are. As I mentioned, I belong to Al-Anon, and every one of my Al-Anon family groups stepped up and took over the responsibility for Malcolm and Angus, my two dogs. They came to deliver food and kept the house tidy and picked up and brought the mail in. My dear friend Mark and his wife Debbie have been there for me since my divorce. They have helped me through some real shitty times in my life. Mark stepped up and carted me back and forth to doctor visits. He even cooked up a hell of a rack of ribs for dinner when I returned home from the hospital. You have to appreciate his sense of humor. At some point in time the next week, I would have a visit with an orthopedic surgery for my shoulder. The interesting part about this adventure was that I was still enjoying the ride. When I was not worrying about what was going on in my head and the inner noise was silenced, I could listen to what was going on around me, and I could hear other people complaining about their lots in life. I could hear nurses complaining about the shitty day they went on the night before. I could hear people complaining about the lack of service they were receiving in the ICU. I heard other people complaining about politics and their opinions regarding the State of the Union, and a lot of trivial bullshit. While all this was going on, I realized that none of it fucking mattered. I don't give a rat's ass about who you're fucking. I don't give a shit about politics or world issues. I certainly don't care about global warming or whether or not your civil rights are being violated in the freest country in the world. I certainly don't give a fuck about your delusions of being a furry or whatever the fuck else you're pretending to be today. One day, reality will slap you in the face and you'll realize that you were wrong. Your opinions were wrong, your lifestyle is wrong, and all those dreams you thought of chasing are just wrong. And that's okay, because when the world comes crashing down, you'll get clarity in regard to the type of human being you are. This will be the reflection you need. You'll see with crystal clarity what your life represents. 30 years ago, when I was stuck in my delusion and arrogance, I thought the world owed me something. What that something was, I don't know. It isn't until you get kicked in the teeth a couple of times that you realize that maybe, just maybe, your perspective on life and your thinking isn't as tolerant as you thought it was. That your contempt for hardworking, responsible people is because you were too much of a pussy to take responsibility for yourself. So you would rather have someone else make decisions for you. I understand, boo. It's hard being responsible for yourself. I also know exactly what it is to hate yourself and be uncomfortable in your own skin. Even as I'm lying in this hospital bed, I keep going over the chain of events in my head, trying to see if I made a mistake and if I could have done something different. Sometimes shit happens, shit that is beyond our control. And when that happens, how are you going to respond? Where I am blessed and grateful is that there are people who stepped up to the plate to help me out. You see, in life, you'll gather a ton of acquaintances. Let me say it a different way. When shit hits the fan, you'll find out who really cares about you. There are the friends that will ask you if there is anything they can do for you. This is a platitude. They're really hoping that you don't ask because it'll inconvenience them. They ask and put the burden on you because more than likely, if you're banged up pretty badly, you won't even know what you need. Then there are the friends and family who insist they must do something for you. Again, this is not for you. This is so they can feed their own ego and tell all their friends what a great human being they are because they've helped someone in need. Virtue signaling at its finest. This has nothing to do with your health, your comfort, or what you need. It has everything to do with their ego and how they look from the point of view of their inner circle. Finally is the group of friends who step up to the fucking plate and handle business. The neighbor who surprises you and comes and picks up your keys and delivers your dog water while you're laid up. The Al-Anon family member who takes up the responsibility of feeding your dogs and making sure they're crated up at night and put outside during the day. The dear friend who, without a second thought, acts as your personal valet and takes you to the doctor's appointments. And the RN who takes time out of her busy day to do a house call to change your bandages. And not one of these people holds a resentment or expects anything in return. They just do it because they genuinely love you. They do it because they're your family. You've heard the cliche that blood is thicker than water. Mostly narcissistic family members will use the line against you in an attempt to guilt you into thinking that the only people in life that have your best interest at heart are people with familial ties. What most people don't ever hear is the rest of that quote. The covenant in blood is thicker than the water of the room. Meaning, the people who have been through the grind with you, who have seen you bleed, sweat, and cry in agony, and who have seen you at your worst and still love you. These are the people that belong with you in the trenches. Those are the people that gave of themselves so that I could recover. What's my point? I guess what I'm trying to get at, or the point I'm trying to make, is that no matter how important your delusional mind may think you are, the reality is you're not. No amount of money, power, or fame will make you a good human being. While your money will pay for comfort and you can hire good health care, it doesn't make the people you hire your friends. It's a transaction, nothing more. If you're an asshole without money, then money will just exacerbate the asshole you are. Just because you have a vagina, it doesn't absolve you of being a delusional cunt. Just because you're bringing down a few grand a month from thirsty simps doesn't exonerate you from being an asshole. You'll come to the reality that you've aged out and hit the wall and you become a crazy cat lady. The internet holds all the receipts. Then all I can do is laugh because you wasted your youth and your beauty for cash and you're all alone. I can hear all you bitches whining. Well, aren't you being judgmental? No, I'm not. What I'm being is discerning, choosing to keep people like you out of my life. I don't have to call you out. I don't have to cancel you or post nonsense on the internet about you. Calling you out as an asshole won't do any good. You are already aware you're an asshole. You'll do it yourself because people will eventually come to realize that even your shit stinks. Shout out to Rob Reiner. All I have to do is walk away, stop spending money on your brand, stop watching your TV shows, and turn off the mainstream media news. It's that easy because all you are is an opinion, and a bad one at that. More about opinions a little later. You're an overpaid rodeo clown with a delusional way of thinking. Don't worry, Hollywood. There are new outlets available for entertainment. You aren't the only game in town anymore. The only people interested in you are the suburban Karens who live in their own delusional world and are slaves to their own white guilt. Soon enough, they'll be having their own reckoning. I know I'm sounding a little dark right now, but the reality is, if we as human beings don't stop this tribalistic mentality, then everything we find to be true will no longer exist, and we will live in some Orwellian universe. Giving up our liberties, our Constitution, and the Bill of Rights will be a huge mistake that we won't recover from. The short of it is to be grateful, which I've mentioned in an earlier chapter. It's funny how I keep coming back to gratitude. Be happy that you have a body to operate in, a body that is functioning. Become comfortable in the body you were born in. It's the only one you have. It's true, your body is a temple. If you keep your temple strong, then you can survive the storms your body will go through. Secondly, reality doesn't give a fuck about your delusions. I began this chapter with a very passionate delusion of me getting up after that fall and kicking some non player character's ass. Reality saw fit that I passed out and never got the vengeance I so delusionally believed I was entitled to. You see, reality doesn't give a fuck about your delusions. Reality doesn't conspire for or against you, but the harder you try to deny reality, the harder your lesson will be when it comes. Give yourself a break and stop swimming upstream and ignoring reality, because there will be a huge grizzly bear that will swat you out of the stream and gut you. Well, like a fish. Then who do you have to blame? Reality? Guess again, reality doesn't give a fuck, and neither do the millions of people who operate in reality. They don't care if your delusion wants to mutilate you and slap a meat puppet to your hip because you hate yourself. It doesn't change a thing. You're still delusional. You're still trying to ignore reality. You're still an NPC, a non player character. A sideshow. That's all you'll be because you choose to live in a delusion. I remember at 38, after moving to my home in San Diego, selling my home in La Habra, selling my car, and starting a new cubicle job. The stress level in my life maxed out and hit the red, and I got hit with the shingles. The breakout happened in the lower left side of my body. I handled the entire month like a little bitch, feeling sorry for myself and playing the victim role. The only positive I accomplished in the 30 days was I read the Walking Dead compendiums 1, 2, and 3. The blisters took over pretty much everything, including my testicles and the left side of my anus. It was a miserable experience, however, it didn't have to be in hindsight. I could have made the time a positive experience. I could have started my memoirs. I could have done anything else other than sit around and act like a little victimized bitch. It's hard looking in the mirror and realize that victimhood doesn't work. Start appreciating what life has to offer. Start appreciating your life. You never know when the lights will turn off and everything will be gone. When you will be in a void, unable to hear anything, see anything, or feel anything. Nothing but a sea of blackness. And that's it. You're one heartbeat away from oblivion. You're gone.